Guys, thank you so much for being here. Steve, I know that I know you're a little busy. You might have to go to India tonight. I hope not. But first thing I wanted to ask you is, when you had to make the decision, the Witkoff Group, in essence, was your baby. You built it from scratch. You made it into a juggernaut. And when you had to make the move to have somebody take over for you, what made Alex qualified, and why did you want him to be in charge?
Well, first of all, I have 2 shout-outs I have to do here.
Okay.
First shout-out is to your mom.
Yes, Mom.
Amir, did you announce your mom, Jaleh, is here?
Yes, I did. That's right.
Okay. Jaleh, I need you to come to the White House to meet the president. We're going to arrange that. And the second shout-out is to my stepdaughter, Finley the Winley. So it wasn't an answer to your question. We have a really good team. Alex is terrific. I mean, he's smart as a whip, and he's been doing just an incredible job for our company. And Scott Alper, also our partner and our president, has been with me for, I think, longer than 25 years, and he's outstanding. So we have a great team. So when I took the job, I knew I was going to divest. I knew I was going to have to leave the business, and it wasn't a hard call for me because I think the business is in good hands.
But how was it? How was that sort of introducing that idea to your partner, Alpert, Scott Alpert?
I think everybody knew that they were capable. Alex is really capable. I have another son who's super capable. Scott's been right by my side since the day that he joined us, and I think everybody embraced the fact that we would be able to grow the company and continue its success, and so we have.
Alex, for you being called to do this, did you have any other passions, by the way? Did you want to go into real estate development? Maybe you wanted to be an actor or something. I mean,
no acting for me. That wasn't my talent.
So you also wanted to be a real estate developer.
Yes. No. Unfortunately, acting or drama wasn't in my blood.
Well, for you to, as you were called up to lead the team at Witkoff Group, did you feel the need to sort of prove yourself to the team that was there and to sort of to gain their respect?
Well, a few things. First off, my dad did an incredible job. Obviously, for 30 years, he led a very successful business, and I think that's part of the reason why President Trump was so eager to have him serve as the US Special Envoy to the Middle East. You heard him announce yesterday he wanted people who were smart and had incredible negotiating prowess, and that's what he had. So the platform, which he successfully led for 30 years, was in a very strong position, and we built a very strong team of people that led us in a great position to lead this next generation so he can go on to serve.
These are very politically correct answers. We're gonna heat things up, guys. Don't worry. We're not gonna let them just give us these template answers. But there's a lot of parallels between you guys and Kushners. Did you go, when you were doing the handoff to Alex, did you reach out to anybody else who was sort of in that legacy situation where they had to sort of hand off to the younger generation to take over? Did you talk to anybody else about it?
Well, I mean, there's so many examples of patriarchs of a family. It happened in the Trump family. It happened in a dear friend of mine, Stanley Chira, who may he rest in peace, and his family. It happens in the Lafrac family. It happens with the Kushners. And I think if you have capable children, it's important to know when to step away and when to give them their opportunity. And
in all fairness, some of those families that you mentioned, the handoff didn't go exactly as planned. It wasn't always as easy as for them to come in and take over successfully. It's
no, look. You can only try. But I think in our case, I mean, we've pivoted to Florida. We've got a big long call on Florida. We do plenty in New York, Amir, but I think we've made some really good calls, and I think there's really been no hiccups. I'd love to tell you that I meant all the difference in the world there, but evidently I haven't. So that's okay. What I'm doing now is is worthy, and it's important, and we're having, on behalf of President Trump, we're having some real success in the world in resolving disputes and bringing people home who didn't think they were going to get home, and I think that feels like a really very important part of my life, if not the most important part.
You know, after September 11th, you said something similar. You know, you were your business was at good size. It's not the size it is now, but it was good size. And after September 11th, you said, you know, after you saw those firemen go into the building, you said that your life had a different purpose, that you wanted to do more, and that were you able to do as much as you wanted to do before you had this new post?
Well, the answer would be no. I mean, this morning I met for breakfast with 3 hostage families. Some of them, there was a hostage at the table who, I don't want to use names, but tremendous lady. She had been mistreated in ways that none of us would ever want to consider for one of our children. She's got a boyfriend who she wants to marry, who's stuck as a hostage with Hamas, but that gives my life meaning to be there. I think I have some degree of empathy because I lost a child, and so many of these people can relate to me because we talk the same language about the loss, and that feels more consequential than the real estate business. Which is not to say that when we were doing real estate that we were doing things that were inconsequential. I'd like to think we did good work, and we were good solid owners out there. But now it's time for me not to do that anymore.
You know, the XI, the One High Line, that was not a project that you had. That was a project that they brought you in on. The Steinway Tower, again, another project that they brought Steve on. Because Steve's always the adult in the room, and the banks go to him when things can't get done, and he gets things done. Do you feel like those calls are still going to come in now that you're not at the helm of the Witkoff Group?
Well, I don't even think there's a doubt. I mean, Alex is very, very capable. The XI project, he led it, but Scott did an amazing job on Steinway, and also on another project that we took over for Apollo out in Brooklyn. So we have a real team, and it's a dynamite construction team. We've got, I don't know, I can't remember what the employee count is now, but we know what we're doing, and we do it a very, very effective job, and I think I don't know, I think the company may grow bigger. And that's as it should be. That's the natural order of things. I mean, you want people who work hard to get acknowledgement. And so I think it's great that Alex and my other son, Zach, who's running this crypto business that we have, and Scott and some of the other people that we have at the firm, that they're going to get their time in the limelight.
You're negotiating multiple deals right now all over the world on behalf of America. Do you find it interesting, and I don't mean to reduce it to real estate, but do you find it interesting that pretty much what you're negotiating comes down to real estate disputes, right? The Middle East, it's about real estate disputes. Russia is about real estate disputes. What are the parallels that you can apply from New York to those deals?
Well, look,
I don't mean to simplify it and call it.
No. It's a fair analogy. I think what I do is I'm in the business of correcting miscommunication, and in the initial hostage release that we were involved in on behalf of the president, the direction was get everybody home, and to get everybody home meant we had to understand Hamas's position, what the leverage points were. We had to understand the Israelis, what they were trying to achieve. And from that came the negotiation. And that's not dissimilar to buying a piece of property, understanding the zoning, understanding who your partners are, how you're going to interact with your partners. It's problem solving, and I've never seen a deal that's good for one party and not good for another. So those are the basic principles around deal making. And what you're talking about that I'm doing in the Middle East is essentially deal making, right? It's figuring out how to narrow the issues between Ukraine and Russia. It's figuring out how to get hostages out when people are sort of stuck in these entrenched positions. It's all of those things, Amir. And you know what I've done all my life feels like I was being prepared to make to be thrown into these situations. And so, but I don't want to minimize the effect of Donald Trump. That's a very important thing here. You know, you could be the greatest negotiator in the world, but if you have someone like President Trump setting the table for you, it's almost like you're cheating when you begin. His whole philosophy of peace through strength, it's something that the world understood, but they hadn't seen it for the last 4 years. And it's resonating now all across the world, whether we're talking about, whether we're in Azerbaijan in a discussion with Armenia, whether it's an Iranian issue, whether it's Russia-Ukraine. His force, his symbolism, that carries a lot of weight out there. And it makes my job a lot easier than it might otherwise be.
I mean, you're a very grounded guy. You're cool, calm, collect. As part of the negotiation, do you ever say, guys, I want to work with you, but you know, the guy in the White House, he's ready to go. So you guys got to move with me. You got to work with me if you want to get this done.
Oh, so you want to know if I do that Mutt and Jeff thing with President Trump? And I can't reveal that. That's a state secret.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Are you ever across the table from some of these guys and you're like, somebody like this could never last in New York real estate?
Well, the president says to me all the time, he says to me, boy, the real estate guys in New York are the toughest guys in the world, but they're nothing compared to the politicians in Washington. And by the way, I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, it is a nasty business in Washington.
Alex, obviously your father is very busy traveling the world. Do you ever feel stunted at work and you're like, man, I got to call my dad about this. I gotta get his take on this.
Well, unfortunately, it's not an option because he's off to solving Iran, the dismantlement of their nuclear program, Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, Gaza. So it's quite a tall order. But unfortunately, given the setup of his government position, he's not involved in the business today, but he's done a tremendous job. We got to work together for 10 years prior. Obviously, we're very close in family engagements and so forth. And we've had the pleasure of working together for 10 years before and rely on that knowledge. And we have a tremendous team, so we're in great hands.
So even if you were about to do a couple of $100 million deal, you wouldn't just text your dad and be like, Dad, we're about to do this. Very exciting. This is exciting. This is going to happen.
Well, he did it for 40 years, so we would have a tremendous amount to add, but unfortunately, we're not allowed to avail ourselves of his talents right now.
So once you go into the office and your dad's not around, do you like sort of spread your wings and you're like, okay, now I can make some of the changes that I always wanted to make? Do you have you implemented any changes that you thought the Witkoff Group should be adopting or implementing?
Well, it's only been 100 days, but I wouldn't say changes because the company has had amazing success for 30 years. We completed over 30 billion of transactions successfully, over 150 transactions, but we continue to grow into new times. We're exploring some of the new advents of technology. As my father mentioned, we've grown quite heavily into the crypto sector with our own stablecoin, World Liberty Financial. We're also exploring things in...
Can you put the microphone to your mouth, please? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're World Liberty Financial, our cryptocurrency business. We're exploring some other new technology sources like data centers and so forth. So we continue to grow into the new times.
Well, it's amazing because with the crypto, wealth can be created so much faster than trying to go through entitlements in real estate and building something and waiting 3-4 years for something to happen. Now you guys are starting the World Liberty coin, correct? And that's strictly at Witkoff Group, or is that a bigger group that's involved in that?
No, it's public. There's a bigger group involved, the Trump family and a few other individuals as well. Stable coins have north of a $250 billion market cap. They're pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar, and it's certainly the future and it's the present. It's the most successful implementation of digitalization of any asset class. When you think of things like global trade or international remittances, the fact that it's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar and backed by treasuries and cash, if you were to transact in Bitcoin, right, the time you receive it, it may fluctuate in value. Same with Ethereum. This is pegged, so you don't have the same FX risk. So it's a huge asset class. We're in it in a huge way with the Trumps, and we're growing quite precipitously.
Steve, you're a bricks and mortar guy. You made your fortune in bricks and mortar. Doesn't this scare the shit out of you? I mean, this is they could take the whole, they could lose the house away in cryptos. No?
Yeah, look, I'm really out of those things today. The business was started 18 months before even the Republican convention happened, and it was a good idea at the time. That's how we were thinking about it. It had nothing to do with, now there's been a surge, and I think there's been a surge in the world of crypto because it does well for all of those people who are unbanked or have been debanked. And think of huge inflation in some Latin American countries. You can't operate in that way, and the crypto is a stabilizer. So I think it's got plenty of good things. There have been some bad actors in the past, but I think we're going to. It's an asset class that will be here for a long time. That said, I do have nothing to do with it, so I just give you a generic thesis on it.
You see these stories about people saying how there could be a conflict with crypto and and the White House. Do you have any fears of that? Do you feel like it should be regulated more?
I think that the president's notion, and we take our cue from the president. His notion is that we're there to do good things on behalf of the American public, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to. I've never felt conflicted in any decision that I make. I make good decisions. If I make a bad decision, I try to reset myself and make a good decision after that. That's the philosophy, and I think hopefully history will be the judge, but at the end of his 4-year term, I think people will see that we had good policy, that we helped to change the world, we helped to reset it, we helped to bring sanity back to our country. We needed it, and here we are in a better way.
Steve, in the book, The New Kings of New York, that The Real Deal published, you guys should all go out and get a copy. It's on Amazon and it's on our website. In that book, you said you used to be an attorney, and Donald Trump would come into the office. This was like in the 80s. And you said you used to love the swashbuckling way even the young Donald Trump would come in there. And Howard Lorber was a young guy back then. He was in a white Rolls Royce. And you were like, these guys are like the rock stars of real estate, and I want to be like these guys. Is it, do you feel like, do you still feel that way about Howard and Larry Gluck, who was your partner for a long time, and he passed away recently, and of course Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, Howard had a cream-colored Rolls Royce, okay, and I remember it like it was yesterday. He would pull it up to 101 Park, and it was. I thought to myself, God, I want one of those. But Larry was an exceptional partner, and I loved him. And I call him one of the most courageous people I ever knew because he had ALS. It was not an easy last 10 years for him, but we met each other, and both of us wanted to be real estate guys. That's what we wanted to do. It was. I think any real estate lawyer practicing out there today ultimately has this view that they want to be the client. And when you would see President Trump, of course he wasn't President Trump back then, when you would see him come to the office, he just had this natural ease to himself, just like he does today. His presence was overarching, and who wouldn't want to be like him? So I say that all the time. Not that I had any notion that I would have the kind of success that I was blessed to have, but I wanted to be like Donald Trump, and Larry did too, and I think, we're not the exception to that. I think a lot of people would have liked to follow in his footsteps.
And you were very bold about it. You actually told him, you were like, hey, how do you do what you do? I want to learn from you, right? Like, yeah. And you guys went to a deli or something? What was the story?
No, I bought him a ham and Swiss sandwich late at night once, but then we became friends. He's been an amazing friend to me and to my family. When my son died, he was right there. I remember how he hugged me. I talk about these things because he was that exceptional of a friend, and that's the reason why when he was being persecuted, I felt it was important that I be there for him. I went to court as much as I possibly could. I testified for him. I thought that it was a horrible, horrible set of circumstances. He was attacked in 4 separate trials. In each of them, he was exonerated. I thought the AG prosecution was outrageous, which is why I testified. I thought the Alvin Bragg trial almost felt like a conspiracy. And I felt that the Jack Smith's trial was outrageous, as well as the Georgia election fraud trial. He was on a telephone call with lawyers. How can you be on a telephone call with lawyers and in any way be suggestive of the fact that you're looking to violate election laws? It's just, some of this stuff was just total nonsense, and the country was veering towards a really bad place. And thank God for him, because he stood up. Lesser people would have never stood up. 4 separate indictments where they went after him to basically take their shot at him. And it's not a right way to do it. I would never be disrespectful to a former president of the United States, but he was disrespected. But he says it all the time. The best revenge is having a successful 4 years. And he and his entire administration is absolutely committed to doing good things for the United States of America. You're going to see some really powerful things happen.
In his first term, he also approached you and offered you positions. What made you decide to join the team this year, and how did that conversation come to be?
Well, we spent a lot of time. I was on the campaign trail with him quite often. And we just began talking about, at a certain point in time, about what it is I might want to do. And the only thing I really wanted to do, Amir, was to make a difference. And I felt I could make a difference if I had something to do with the negotiations in the Middle East. And so he said to me, well, let's just call you Special Envoy. And so that's really how it developed. And honestly, I feel blessed to do this job. I have met every hostage family. I've met every single hostage who has come out there on a first-name basis with me. They have my telephone number. I've had dinners with them. I've spent so much time with them. They've enriched my life. And I think the president would say the same thing about his experiences with them. And of course, I say to him all the time, sir, you're responsible for a lot of people coming home, and they're going to build families. It's a big deal to be a part of this, and he's given me that opportunity, and I will always be grateful to him for it.
Normally, people who have roles like that, they're seasoned politicians and diplomats. Did you have any sort of imposter syndrome when the position was offered, and you thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this? I don't know the cultures in these parts of the world. I don't know how to communicate with these guys.
Well, look, it's an awesome responsibility, and if you get it wrong, people could die. So I think you have to be really committed. I spent a lot of time over there in the Middle East, and I'd like to think that we did good work, and we're continuing to do good work, and that's what the president's expectations are. He's got very high expectations of the people who work for him. Just because I have a friendship with him does not mean I'm going to get a pass. His expectation is that we go out and we do good things. and that we do good things on behalf of the American people. And I admire that mandate, and I stand by, and it means a lot to me. And so hopefully we'll continue to be able to serve on his behalf, and it will be an example of how good government ought to be.
If I can add to that question, we just had the opportunity to be with Alan Dershowitz and spend time with him, and he frequently gets asked the question by a lot of people who are seeking legal counsel, who should I pick? How should I go about picking a lawyer? And frequently they anticipate he's going to answer, pick the person who's done it for 30, 40 years and has the most trial experience in this particular matter. But he actually surprises a lot of people with his answer, Alan Dershowitz, when he says, pick the smartest person. And that's directly applicable to the situation and the question you just asked. President Trump's approach, which has proved to be effective, as Alan Dershowitz made the analogy, is it's not picking someone who's maybe done it for 40 years and hasn't necessarily achieved success. It's picking the best athletes and the smartest people on the field, people like Elon Musk and my father. So that's how we think about it.
Alex, back to you. And you can't give me a canned response. Okay, I want your real, honest response. Define success for the Witkoff Group 5 years from now, as you at the head. Like, I just want you to be as candid as possible what that looks like.
Look, I always say this. First off, as an aside, we're very involved in philanthropic endeavors. We're very involved in Jewish causes. We're having a big event with United Hatzalah shortly. But as it comes to work, we're in a for-profit business, and success is judged by revenue and growth. So we continue to build up our development business. We continue to move into other avenues that are strictly based on profit and revenues. Separately, obviously, we're very involved in philanthropy. We're very involved in Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami, a lot of the cultural organizations. But as it comes to the Witkoff Group over the next 5 years, it's solely based on the growth and profits of the company.
I mean, it does change things a little bit. I mean, Witkoff is not exactly Smith or Johnson, so like when you call people recognize the name and they recognize Steve. Is it easier to make those phone calls when you're raising capital right now?
I'd say, we're raising capital based on a 30-year career. We've been doing business with major private equity firms, pension funds, banks for 30, 40 years, so it's business as usual.
So it hasn't changed at all? I mean, I know you guys, the Park Lane Hotel recently sold to the Qataris. Like that happened around the same time that, Steve was going there. And I know he got a lot of hard press about that, but it obviously, did there appear like any conflict there? Because it happened with the Kushners too. They were having a hard time with 666, and Jared goes into office, and then the Qataris come in and sort of purchase 6.
Well, first off, they're part of that deal for many years before. As you know, they have a big debt business. They do a lot of, they're quite active. So they're part of that transaction for a long period of time. And part of the reason he was able to be so successful in his role in the Middle East is because we'd been doing business in the Middle East for many, many years before, and those relationships allowed him to be successful in his role.
And Steve, you actually have, you say really nice things about Qataris, which actually in the news, you don't hear that. You see these guys get, they get wrung, but you were you thought that they were there to do deals. They wanted to make things work. They wanted, the whole situation in the Middle East to be solved, and they really put their best foot forward.
Well, first of all, we were never partners with the Qatari Investment Authority on the Park Lane. We were partners with Mubadala. The Qatari Investment Authority foreclosed on a mezzanine loan against Mubadala and took it over. And so we were never partners with the Qatari Investment Authority. With that said, I have a friendship and a great relationship with the Prime Minister of Qatar. His name is Sheikh Mohammed. I'm on record as saying that. The president, I think, set the table for the hostage release, but it was also enabled in large part because of our wonderful working relationship with Sheikh Mohammed. He was the mediator, the negotiator, along with us, and along with the Israeli team, as we were engaged with Hamas. And I just don't think that we would have been as successful if we didn't have Sheikh Mohammed as a part of that negotiation process. And to me, he ought to be commended for that, and so I say it out loud. And I sometimes listen to the skeptics say, how could you how could you in some way say those things? I say those things because it's honest, because that's who I am. I mean, if you know, if you don't, if you're not honest, then who are you? And so he was a very, very important part of that process.
Now, for Steve, your name has popped up in political circles in New York a bunch of times in the recent months. Would you ever run to be mayor of New York City?
There's not even a shot. It's not even. First of all, you know, I did this because a man by the name of Donald J. Trump asked me to do it. And he is a dear friend. And I really am grateful for that friendship. I really am. And so part of what I get to hang out with him. I mean, it's really pretty cool. I pinch myself. So so much, where I would say 95% of it has to do with that. So I do not aspire for political office, nor do I aspire to run for any kind of federal office, nor do I aspire to be a member of any other presidential administration but the Trump administration. And I am never walking back from those comments.
Steve, Alex, thank you guys so much for being here. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Ye-